Hello everyone, this is Jake from CINECALIBER. In today's video, I'm actually going to be reviewing a film I just recently saw called If. I had recently seen this film with my wife for a date night. I didn't really know what to think of the film before we went to go see it, as it was my wife's idea to go see it. The only thing that I knew about the film was that John Krasinski was in it. So we'll kind of go into that here as like an introduction to what this film is about. So basically, John Krasinski, as you all probably know him as Jim Halpert in The Office, he is the director, writer, producer, and he also co-stars in this film. This is a comedy film, and this would be his third comedy film that he has directed himself. He recently made well, not recently. He made two comedy films, one called Brief Interviews with Hideous Men and The Hollers. Both were pretty, critically not that great, so to speak. He has a better track record with the Quiet Place films. Those films are absolutely outstanding, and the new one that's coming out is actually one of my most anticipated films for this year. So, but yeah, this film, I have to say, it has a lot of mixed reviews from critics. I feel like it's more of a hit with the audience than it is with the critics, but I also feel like the film is getting a lot more hate from the critics than it should. And I really do feel like after seeing it that people are missing the meaning that Krasinski is trying to present in this film, and which is why it's probably getting so much hate, which is, sad to say, because overall it wasn't that bad of a film. It wasn't perfect, but it was definitely okay. But yeah, we're going to go into all that here. So first off, we are going to have the plot summary, which is this. A young girl who goes through a difficult experience begins to see everyone's imaginary friends who have been left behind as their real life friends have grown up. So we're going to get into what was a hit, The Good. So really, the first thing I want to tackle here is really the acting. The acting does a tremendous job all around in this film for the most part. The biggest highlight is going to be the main protagonist, which is played by Kaylee Fleming. For those that don't know her, she plays Judith in The Walking Dead. She brings like a tragic yet inspiring performance for the main character, who's called B. I think when she came, we really got a good feel of who she was. You gotta get a sense of some kind of tragedy happening. And then as the film progresses, she just kind of grows, and I really thought that Kaylee Fleming did a good job kind of just showing that growth of B's character. Another great performance in this film, I'd have to say, is Ryan Reynolds. Now, I like Ryan Reynolds, but I have to say he's always playing the same role. So I really thought this film actually was a little bit different, which I liked. He's actually able to pull off a different performance than his typical whimsical Deadpool persona that plagues him in pretty much every film he's ever in. I really enjoyed him in this film. I thought he had a great chemistry with Kaylee Fleming. He definitely had that Deadpool persona, but it wasn't oversaturating the performance he was trying to portray in this film. So that was another pretty good highlight of acting. Then really, those are the two big characters, but there's some other pretty standout performances in this film that I enjoyed, such as Fiona Shaw as Maggie, which is Bee's grandma. Fiona Shaw plays Aunt Petunia in Harry Potter, and she's a sub-character in the recent True Detective season. She's a pretty well-known actress. I'm glad to have seen her, because I don't see her in a whole lot, but when she is present, she actually does a very good job with her performances. She just seemed like a really good kind of figure to help be kind of guide along, but she also they used her as a pretty significant plot point in this film as well. And then, of course, John Krasinski himself actually plays a pretty decent part in this film, minus, him being the writer, director, and all that. You don't see a lot of him in this film, but his performance when he is on is tremendous. He does a great job. He steals the show every time he's on the screen. And then for the actual If side of things, like the actual imaginary friends, that's what If is hyphenated for. Steve Carell and Phoebe Waller-Bridge provide great voice work for their characters. They're pretty much the two main characters of the If side of the characters. And then really, after that, we're going to go into what else I liked. Besides the performances, the CGI I thought worked pretty well for this film. It felt like I was watching like a live action version of Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, for anyone that knows that show from the old Cartoon Network days. And it also had it was like a more polished mix of Roger Rabbit, which is an old film as well, that mixed some live action with some cartoons back in the day. So yeah, that's the best way I can describe it. It's like a more polished version of those, like Foster's Home. That's what the story to me felt like, and then the actual animation is a little bit more upgraded of Roger Rabbit. Another big thing I liked in this film is, it really goes along with the performances, but they really captured some truly emotional moments in this film. Like once the film really started to develop, there were moments that made me just kind of be on the brink of tears. I was like, oh my god, this is so sad. This is so heartfelt. Like I could really feel what the characters were feeling at the time, and it was just, it was so emotional, and not many films can do that, and this film did. And then really, the other thing that I liked in this film was the ending. The ending, it puts into perspective of what Krasinski was trying to tell with this story, which I was talking about earlier. When everything comes together and you see what he's trying to do, it's really a story. It makes for a great story of how adults use memories to truly define their own life, for the better or for the worst. That's the best way I can kind of say it without really spoiling too much. So, but yeah, those are my big things of what was a hit. Now we're going to go on to what was a miss, the bad. So, there was a few things here with this film that kind of was off for me. The film took a really long time to develop. Like, the pacing was just really stale at times. Like, I have to be honest with you, I nodded off sometimes in that beginning. I was just like, this has to get better, or I'm not going to make it. But it just took a bit to develop, and there was just some grounding that needed to be done with this film to kind of make it a little bit better. For example, like Maggie, Bee's grandma, kind of just lets Bee wander around New York. It was a bit unbelievable. I actually don't know what time period this takes place in, but having just your granddaughter just run around New York, I feel like in this time age, just kind of seems like a bit unbelievable. The world's so crazy. And you could tell it was definitely more modern. It wasn't like back in the old days, people just ran around everywhere. So I just felt that it was a little weird. And then there was also I didn't like there was a lack of explanation in the beginning of Bee's dad's surgery, or what even happened to Bee's mom. And funnily enough, I don't even think they ever said what John Krasinski's name was in the film. I think he's just known as Bee's dad, from what I know, which is kind of crazy too. It's like the film really, it felt like the film was more interested in decorating and digitizing everything, and then it just decided to not develop any particular story elements that would make the film flow a bit better. More of here's some art and really not so much depth. So, which I'm not too big of a fan of. I like an equal balance. I really enjoyed the message this film was this message that Krasinski was trying to present, but I just felt like he skipped out on some really great world building for the Ifs. There was a moment where we really get to explore the Ifs, and I really loved that scene because it was you get to see how they live, who they are, and everything. And then I feel like that was it. They didn't really tap into that whatsoever. They kind of kept going on their mission to do what they were going to do, and it kind of just felt a little bit disheartening that they didn't tap into what could have been a potentially great world building, or a particular set of world building for this film. Like, there were so many ifs, but they actually didn't get to be explored either. The only ones that were explored were Blossom and Blue, which were the two main ifs played by Steve Carell. And what was the co-star's name? And what's her name? And Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Sorry, I can never remember her name. And then and then like I said, there were so many other characters. It would have been nice to really, if we could have explored them just a little bit more. Like Uni, played by Emily Blunt. You had Spaceman, played by George Clooney. You had Ice, played by Bradley Cooper. Sonny, played by Matt Damon. Art Teacher, played by Richard Jenkins. Cosmos, Christopher Maloney. Like, there's just so many characters. Like, they had such a great cast, but they did nothing with them. Like, besides a few cameos, and it's like, that just didn't sit right with me, you know. So, I mean, that was pretty much all that I had that was a miss with this film. So we're gonna move on to the conclusion. Is this film a film of caliber? So this film was one that the critics didn't give enough credit, and despite its lack of grounding and at times convoluted narrative and lack of world building, it provides some deep meaning of how imagination and memories are vital in making us who we are today, and helps us through the dark times of our life. So, yeah, it took a bit to develop, but once it did, it was actually truly monumentally emotional film, and it was good. Yeah. So I'm gonna have to give this film a final rating of a 3 out of a 5. It has just made the film of caliber, and yeah. I definitely would go see this film if you guys can. It's a nice family film. It's got some comedic moments to it. It's got some great drama in it, and it's good for the kids. So, but yeah, 3 out of a 5, and that will conclude my rating for this film and my review. You guys have a great day or night, and thank you for watching this. This is Jake from CINECALIBER.